Yes, you're most welcome. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Okay, that's good. So we may not need to wait for any other thing. We just need to start straight away. So this is still Teacher Ben. We are going to have integrated science.
Yes.
So last week, we had asked you to go through the skeletal system. I don't know if you went through that unit.
I didn't go through it in the platform, but I did look at it in one of my books.
Sorry?
I didn't go through it in the platform, but I looked at it in one of my books.
Hey. Okay, but you're supposed to log into the site and be able to go through that work and then present that work, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. Now, let me first hear what you went through. You can discuss it with us, you share with us, you present what that was all about. And then later, we shall have to see. Okay, you can go straight.
According to what I recall,
Yes.
I looked at some part of it. I looked at the definition of a skeleton. And the skeleton is a structure that supports the body of an organism.
Good.
Then I went to the human skeleton. And the human skeleton is a framework of bones.
Good.
And the human skeleton is made out of hard tissues and soft tissues. The hardest tissues are called bones and the soft ones are called cartilage.
Good.
Then there are three types of skeletons, namely endoskeleton, exoskeleton, and hydrostatic skeleton. Endoskeleton is the type of skeleton found inside the body of an organism. This is mostly invertebrates, like mammals, birds, fish, reptiles, amphibians. Then exoskeleton is the type of skeleton found outside the body of an organism, like invertebrates. For example, arthropods. Then hydrostatic skeleton is a type of skeleton found in animals with soft bodies, like worms, like invertebrates. Then some functions. The functions of the skeleton to an organism. For body protection, for body support. Then it's used for making blood cells.
Good.
And these blood cells are manufactured from bone marrow.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, yeah, that's what I remember from.
So, Shivani, So did you study P7 for some time, or you just have those notes?
I actually I have the notes actually.
You have the notes?
Yeah, I have the notes.
Okay, that's good. So, but I want to encourage you to utilize also the notes in the site. We have those notes. It is just the same. What you have been talking about is the same, and it is very correct. And I need you to always make sure you understand that very well and keep remembering that, because those are the same things that they will ask you in your examination. It is the same thing. So you have to be able to know it very well and give the answers from your head. So it means that you must take a lot of time in the site or even revising your books so that when exams come, you just hit straight away distinction. And that's what we need. So did you find any challenges accessing the work in the site?
Not really. I have some challenges accessing some units. Like some units, I was not able to access them. And in English, I had this problem where I was not being able to open a link which they had provided me to answer my work. And I still not being able to access the link.
What about science? Are you able to access the site for science?
Yeah, yes, I am able to access the site for science.
Okay, so we shall rectify that. For English, I'll ask teacher Jonah to guide you so that you'll have free access to that work. So this is the work that you
Hello? Are you getting
you've been talking about? So oh, sorry, my internet is very shaky. I hope you can hear me now. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I'm getting you now.
Okay, so this is what you were talking about, a skeleton. And we say that a skeleton is the supportive structure of an animal. So the word an animal, you can instead use an organism. If you don't want to use an animal, is the supportive structure of an animal, or is the structure that supports the body of an organism. It is the same. Is the structure that supports the body of an organism. It is very correct. Or you can give this short definition. You can say a skeleton is a supportive structure of an animal. Is that right? Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay. Then if they talk about the human skeleton, just as you said, it is very correct. It's the framework of bones in the body of a human being, or in the body of an animal or a vertebrate. As simple as that. But if they are talking about human skeleton, it means they are referring to man, human beings. That's why you may end by saying is the framework of bones in the body of a human being. As simple as that. So we are told that this skeleton is a hard because it contains mineral matter called calcium. So this hard part of the skeleton is regarded as bones. It is the bones that are hard in the human skeleton. And each one of us has got bones. And we are told that scientifically, we have 206 bones in our body. We have 206 bones, with the 22 of them in the skull, and then 33 in the backbone or in the vertebral column. So that is it. Another serious question that they always ask you, name the largest or the longest bone in the body. Name the longest bone in the body.
The thigh bone, the femur bone or thigh bone.
Okay. Scientifically, you can say femur. Femur, just femur. And then if you want to use English, you can say thigh bone. You can say thigh bone if you want to use English, but it is advisable that you rather use scientific words. That is femur. That is its name scientifically. It is the femur. Then also the name given to the bones of the skull. The bones of the skull are called cranium. Can you say cranium?
Cranium.
So the name given to these bones that make up the skull is called cranium. As simple. So you should not get confused. It is the same when someone talks about skull, it is a collection of those bones. It is a collection of those bones that make up the skull. Those bones that make up the skull are called cranium. When you collect the 22 bones together, then you make what we call skull. As simple as that. And then this is the vertebral column starts right away from here up to the neck. All that is the vertebral column. And we are told that there are around 33 bones in the vertebral column, 33 bones in the backbone. So that is it. Then the smallest bone in the human body is the steps. These steps are found in the middle ear. In the human ear, they are found in the middle ear. So this is the skeleton that we are talking about. We say that the skeleton gives the body shape. You were telling me the functions, and they are very correct. The skeleton gives the body shape. The skeleton supports the body. The skeleton helps the body to move or is used for movement. The skeleton supports delicate body organs. So you realize here, are you seeing this part? This is the chest cavity. Are you seeing the cursor? The cursor?
Yes.
This is the chest. This is the chest cavity. Which body organs are protected by this part? By the ribs?
The heart and the lungs.
Heart and the lungs. So that's why we say that the skeleton helps to protect delicate body organs. And then here, the which system is protected by the pelvis. This one you can call these hips, pelvis or pelvic girdle. If you don't want to say pelvis, you say pelvic girdle. Someone says, I have pain around the pelvis, meaning that person has pain around the hips. So this one is the pelvic girdle, or pelvis. Some people prefer calling it hips. I have pain around the hips. So which body organ or reproductive system or which system of the body is protected by the pelvis or pelvic girdle?
Reproductive. He says the
reproductive system and
the
you have
excretory
and
some part of it. Excretory.
Some part of the excretory, but you can be specific and say that the urinary system and then the reproductive system. It is true that the urinary system is part of the excretory system, but you may just be specific and say that if they ask you to mention the systems that are protected by the pelvic girdle. So you simply say, one, we have the urinary system, then the other one is the reproductive system. Reproductive system, isn't it? Okay. So this is the bone. Are you seeing this bone? This is the longest bone in the body. So it is called the femur. They can name it from here, or this one like that. These bones, this bone is the femur. That is the femur. It is the bone of the thigh. That's why we call it the thigh bone. So when you look at this part, are you seeing this white part here around the pelvic girdle? This one is a joint. It is a joint. Another joint is here. Another joint is here. Another one is here. Another one is here. Another joint is here. There is another joint in the neck. That's why your neck can turn. There is a joint there. And then you have this one, and then also around the knees here, you have the joint. Even around the knees. Around the knees, there is a joint. Around here, we have a joint here. That's why that part can move. Any part that can move, there is a joint there. But of course, it doesn't mean that we have only movable joints in the body. There are also those joints that cannot move. We have those joints that cannot move. Those joints that cannot move are found in the skull. They are found in the skull. And they are called, those joints are called the suture joints. Suture joints. So those joints that cannot move, those joints of the skull, they are called suture joints. And the type of joints which do not allow movement, those ones, we call them immovable joints. We have two types of joints. We have movable joints and then immovable joints. Okay. Movable joints and immovable joints. As simple as that. So let's move on and have a look at another thing. Since you talked about these other parts, you need to know they can even draw these, or they can choose to draw this part. Then they ask you to answer different questions. So let's move on. You also explained the types of skeletons. We have 3: hydrostatic skeleton, exoskeleton, and then the endoskeleton. I'm not going to repeat anything there because you explained that. You also talked about the hardest tissue found in animals with backbones. These hardest tissues are called bones. That's why here they are saying, what is a bone? Bones are hardest tissues found in animals with backbones. Found in animals with backbones. As simple as that. So let's continue. We need to look at briefly the joints. You have the joints here. Maybe what is a joint? Shivani, what is a joint?
A joint is a place where 2 or more bones meet in the body.
Good. Types of joints.
Movable joints and immovable joints.
Movable joints and immovable joints. So this is one of the examples of the movable joint. This is an example of a movable joint. So what name is given to this joint? So which part of the body do you think we get this joint from?
I'm not sure.
The part of the body where we get this kind of joint from.
I think the knee or the knee.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, I don't know.
That joint.
Not sure.
This joint is from the knee. It is from the knee. If you see this kind of joint, you just know that that is a knee joint. But before you even talk about the knee joint, if the question comes, they can say, name the type of movable joint below. We have around 5 different types or 4 different types of movable joints. We have the hinge joint, where this one belongs. We have the hinge joint, the ball and socket joint. Let's first reach there. So we have examples of movable joints. We have the hinge joint, the ball and socket joint, the pivot joint, and then the gliding joint. Gliding joint. The gliding joint. This gliding joint is also called a plane joint. It is also called a plane joint, and it is
Joint.
found in the hands here. Let me first start my video so that you may see. Are you seeing this part?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the part which this is where the gliding joint is formed. This is where the gliding joint is formed. We shall, when we continue, we shall see that part very well. It is drawn down there. This is where the gliding joint is. So in case they draw for you and then they ask you to name the type of joint found in this part, say gliding joint. If you don't want to say gliding joint, you simply say plain joint, as simple as that. Then we have the hinge joint. The hinge joint is found in two parts in our bodies. One, you'll get the hinge joint in the knees, around the knees. You'll hinge joint around the knees and then around the knees. And also you'll get the hinge joint around this part. This part. And then this part, like this one, is called the elbow joint. It is called the elbow joint. And then the one at the knee, you simply say the knee joint. So if they ask you, name any two examples of hinge joints. Two examples of hinge joints.
Knee joint and elbow joint. Elbow joint.
Knee joint and the elbow joint. As simple as that. And then when they talk about the pivot or ball and socket joint, which parts do you think this joint is formed? The ball and socket joint.
The ball socket. Shoulder. I think shoulder.
It is in the shoulder. Are you seeing? So the ball and socket joint is the type of joint that allows movement around to all directions. It allows movement to all directions. Then also around the hip joint. Even the hip joint has got him the ball and socket. You'll realize that there is a socket, the hole remains inside. The hole remains inside. So that is why the name ball and socket came from. Ball and socket joint. That part here, that white part, that is the ball. And inside where it enters, it is the socket. It is the socket. That's where we came up with ball and socket joint. Ball and socket joint, as simple as that. So you need to know that. So there are two parts where we find the ball and socket joint. We get ball and socket joint around the hip. That's why we call it hip joint. And also you can call this one the shoulder joint. Those two are examples of the ball and socket joints, and they allow movement to all directions. They allow movement to all directions. Then for the case of the hinge joint, they only allow movement to only one direction. Those ones allow movement to only one direction. Or one plane. That's why you see it only comes like this, but cannot go back this part here. It only allows movement to only one direction. But for the case of this one, it allows even behind, in front, down, up, so all direction. That one is the ball and socket. Then for the case of the hinge joint, it only allows movement to only one direction. The same thing with the knee. It also allows movement to only one direction. Now, in your examination, they will ask you to give the difference between the hinge joint and then the ball and socket joint, what will you say?
The hinge joint is a type of joint which uh, okay, hinge joint is the type of joint that allow movement in one plane only, while ball and socket joints are joints in the are body joints that allow movement in allow allow
Movement in all directions. In all
directions.
Allows movement in all directions. For us, we have used here plane. It is the same as direction in all planes. So if we can see from here, we say that the ball and socket joint is a type of movable joint which allows movement in 3 planes. If you want to use the word planes, then you have to say in 3 planes. Then if you want to use the word direction, you simply say in all directions. In all directions. That is to say, you can take it forward, backward, sideways, and in circular form. And in a circular
360.
As simple as that. Okay. So you need to understand that very, very well. You also need to understand these different parts, because this one, they will draw for you this, and then they will expect you to understand. I don't know. You said you have the textbooks there. And I don't know if they are named very well, like this bone. This one is the femur. This one is the femur. So you don't need just to put their bone, because they will ask you. It is the femur. This one is the femur.
Yes.
Then this one is the tibia. The tibia. So you need to name it very well. Here, instead of saying that articular cartilage, you just say cartilage. That is cartilage.
Okay.
And then inside this, there is a fluid, dots, a fluid. That fluid is called the synovial fluid. Synovial fluid. So this synovial fluid is the one that protects. It's the one that protects prevents friction in the joint. Its work is to prevent friction in the joint. As simple as that. So other things, here we have the pivot joint. For the case of the pivot joint, where do you think the pivot joint is found in the body?
In the neck area.
Yeah, the pivot joint is found around the neck, in the neck. That is the pivot joint. As simple as that. So you need to know that very, very well. So when you look at the hinge joints, so if they talk about give the types of joints, the types of joints are 2. That is movable and then immovable joint. And then when they talk about examples of hinge joint, there are 2. That is the elbow joint and then the knee joint. Then if they talk about the examples of ball and socket joints, you will also talk about the shoulder joint and then the hip joint, or the pelvic joint. Then for the case of the pivot joint, this one is the neck joint. The gliding joint is found around the wrist. So these are the examples, as you can see them. So you may have to draw this diagram. Then you go to the ball and socket joints, examples, illustration of the ball and socket joint is here. This diagram is common in your examination. They like bringing it so much. This is a clavicle, that bone. That bone is that is clavicle. If I can show you where that clavicle is. The clavicle is a bone that comes like this. If you touch this part, it is just a bone that comes like this. That is the clavicle. They like asking it so much. And then for the case of the scapula, it is a bone that is flat. It is a flat bone which is found here, just slightly above the breast. It is a bone which is found here. It is even where the breasts and everything rests. So that bone is flat, as you can see from here. That is the bone. And then this is the humerus. It is one of those examples of bones that are long. It is one of the examples of long bones. Because when we continue, we shall look at the types of bones, where we shall get to know the long bones and then the short bones. We also have flat bones and irregular bones. That is to say, we have 4 types of bones. 4 types of bones. So you need to have this diagram drawn, and you master it very, very well. The pivot joint is that one. Gliding joint is that one. It is found in the wrist or anklets. The wrist and the anklets. The anklets is just down the leg, almost in the foot there. That joint, that is the ankle. And then the wrist is in the hand here. So those 2 joints, those are that is the wrist joint. So you also need to draw this because they like asking it so much. Then you have the importance of joints, as simple as that. The importance of joints. Then we shall look at the immovable joints. I need you to go through all this work. Immovable joints. Now, starting from immovable joints, you have to write all that work down, all of it. And then you move up to muscles. Even finish muscles. For this one, you may not need to draw this one.
Okay.
You need to do that one. There is the one that I wanted you to draw, but I don't know if I can provide it. Then, yeah, you can do the work. Where you find challenges, please contact me. Don't wait for only Monday. Then when we have the engagement, you can call me. You have my number, and then notify me when you have problem, isn't it? So when you have a challenge, you call me. So that is where we are going to end, unless you have a question, but I want you to continue with this work right away. And then so that when we meet, we shall reach somewhere. When we reach, if we reach muscles, explaining muscles and everything about muscles, then we shall be remaining with something small to complete that unit. But as we complete the unit, it means that you should have also completed writing the work in your book so that you can do the revision. Is that okay?
Yes, it's okay.
So that's it for today. I want to wish you a good day. Unless there is a question, you can ask.
No, there is no question.
Okay, have a good day.
Me too, sir. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. Haman, we are done.